Hello and welcome to the Matchbook Horse Racing Podcast. And I say this every week, we're previewing an excellent weekend's horse racing. It's not always true, but it is true this week because we've got 7 Group 1s to get stuck into. The last classic of the season in the UK, 6 Group 1s over in Ireland, what is Irish Champions Weekend between Leopardstown and the Curragh. And it looks a belting couple of days. You can see I'm joined by Jane Mangan. Jane, how are you?
I'm very good, and yourself?
I am very, very well. I'm looking forward to this weekend's horse racing. Declan, great man, all well, sir?
Yeah, all good with me, Tom. Looking forward to a great weekend.
And Don, we chat too often. It's embarrassing.
We do.
We're looking at similar sort of racing that we talked about earlier on in the week. Thankfully, everything we put up is staying put. But I don't suppose any opinions have changed just yet. It's only been a few days.
Yeah, exactly. That doesn't necessarily mean that opinions haven't changed. But you shouldn't have said that not every weekend is a great weekend. Next weekend, people will be going, hold on a minute. He said last week that he wasn't telling the truth every week. But you're right about this weekend. It's a good one.
That's right. I've given the game away, haven't I? That's an error on my part. Right, let's get stuck into the racing because we don't have too long. We're attempting to do 7 Group 1s in 45 minutes. So no waffle. All the good stuff is what we're going to be talking about. First up, the St. Leger, the last classic of the season. We know now that Donnacha is going to come over to England and ride Sir Dragonet, who's had just the one start since he ran in the Derby and was beaten less than a length on that occasion, so no disgrace in that performance. He was, however, Declan, beaten on his most recent start. Does that give you any concern coming in there? And does that mean that Logician, who won the Great Voltager, is the good thing of the day? What's your opinion?
No, I think that in terms of, we know from what we saw in the Derby, he's a decent animal, and what he did at Chester as well. I think the last run at the Curragh was just a classic case of Aidan O'Brien backing off his horse, giving him a kind of a mid-season break, and then kind of trying to tee him up again for a big race at the end of the season. In terms of a prep coming into a big race, I thought it was a nice run. Was it disappointing he got beaten? Yes, it was. But look, he wasn't ridden like they were, very keen on winning the race. I think he was held up out the back off a slow gallop. It just looked like they were getting a run into him, kind of putting the final touches on him for the Leger run. So I know I wouldn't be too worried about that in terms of a prep. I like it coming in. I think it just tees them up nicely. I think sometimes coming into these big races, we get too excited about horses who look so impressive in a trial, and then they can leave their race behind come the big day. In terms of a prep, I like it, and it was interesting to see yesterday on RTV. I'm surrounded by RTV men and women here this morning. Donnacha O'Brien gave him a pretty positive bulletin by the sounds of it. The O'Briens are kind of pretty reserved, I think, in general, and Donnacha seemed pretty keen on him. He said his work at home he's been very good, and he's looking forward to the ride.
To give you an update on the prices at the moment, you've got Logician 2.0, so Dragonet 4.0, and then Il Paradiso. Ran a good race last time. 7.0 is coming back in trips. Saron Priestley 12s, Technician 17, Dashing Willoughby 19, Naif Road 34, Western Australia 67. Don, I know we've touched upon this. Logician's time was very good. I suppose that's the best thing you can say about the race, because I suppose on the face of that York run, the strength of the field may have just looked a touch disappointing. We were Team Constantinople, Jane and Declan. So because of that, surely we think that the second coming is Logician because he beat our favourite horse. But I don't know. For all the time was good, I can't go too mad about the form. Jane, what do you think?
Constantinople let us all down quite badly. So I'm not going to...
We were fighting for the best bet to be Constantinople. It didn't work.
Because Logician coming into the race had just won a handicap off 90, was it? So it's not like the profile of a horse that's going to be going for a classic. To be honest, with this St. Leger, I was thinking at the beginning of the week, Il Paradiso, very good form, on the line with DXB the last day, and I didn't think it would be as straightforward as it seems to have been for Donnacha to just say, oh, definitely Sir Dragonet. So I thought that was a compliment in itself to the Derby form, and I think we're probably forgetting as well how inexperienced he was going into the Derby, and I'd imagine he probably needed a break because he had such an obscure build-up to a classic like that. Ran very well. The form of the Derby is the strongest all year. And I was at the Curragh when he ran over 10 furlongs, which one would be an insufficient trip for him, and two, he looked like he would need the run. So I saw the interview with Donica that Declan alluded to, and it would catch your ear now, wouldn't it? You know, he was very sweet on him, and the fact that even Wayne or Seamus isn't going over to ride Il Paradiso suggests to me that they think they have it safe.
Well, I mean, they've got a pretty good record as well, haven't they? I mean, I'm very much in the Sir Dragonet camp, only because, quite simply, I couldn't back a horse at 2.0 at even money that has won his race well enough last time, but on the strength of the form, I just couldn't side with him, a horse that beat Constantinople, who I'm now not 100% sure really shows the best of his ability. So I'd have to look elsewhere, and I'd be quite positive about Don, the way that Aidan's brought Sir Dragonet forward as well. We know how he quite often operates, and it just seems so obvious that a horse that started his career over 1.5 miles, they took a little break with him after the Derby, considered him the ledger horse from that point, gave him a trial run last time where he was disappointing on the face, but he'll come on a bundle for it, and hopefully it's going to be job done on Saturday in Doncaster. It's easy.
Easy, yeah, exactly that. No, that makes an awful lot of sense. Like, Sir Dragonet has the St. Leger prep run, hasn't he? He's got the run that you'd like a horse to have had. Look, Logician was very, very good at York, and I was a Constantinople fan as well. In fact, I backed him for the St. Leger before the Great Voltager, thinking, how clever is this? Not clever at all.
Constantinople podcast.
I was also in that anti-post boat, Don.
There you go. It's not a very nice boat now. It can be, but not at the moment.
The Melbourne Cup, get on that.
Yeah, look, Sir Dragonet, I was kind of trying to make a case for Il Paradiso at the price, because I think he's a wee bit overpriced. Like, his run in the Lonsdale Cup was a really, really good. Like, he probably should have really been second. There was nothing between him and DXB. Behind, it was only a length behind Stradivarius. That was a hell of a run, and that coming on from an unbelievable performance in a handicap. I know he was racing off a mark of 89, but it was, like, visually and in terms of substance, it was a seriously impressive performance. So he's a very progressive horse. But yeah, just you feel that Sir Dragonet is a little way ahead of Il Paradiso in Team Ballydoyle's eyes. And what Donica said yesterday was great. Sir Dragonet is actually rated £2 superior to Logician. Now, I know that Logician's only run 4 times and he's won all 4, so he's got lots of potential to progress again. But no, like to run Sir Dragonet in a Royal Whip over 10 furlongs on his first run since the Derby, his first run since for 2.5 months, essentially, obviously with a bigger target in mind, and the target obviously was the St. Leger, is the St. Leger. Yeah, like he's got an awful lot to like about him. And yeah, like, again, I was trying to look at Sir Ron Priestley, but he's tough, but he's gonna have to step up a lot on what he's done so far in order to beat Sir Dragonet or Logician. And it's, you know, in the St. Leger, the classy horses come to the fore, don't they? I know they're stepping up and trip mostly, but they do these days. It's a classy horses race. We've had some really good St. Legers run in recent years, and you know, Logician and Sir Dragonet, they had the race in terms of abilities and excitement as well, and they're both kind of on an up going into the race. But yeah, I think definitely the values with Sir Dragonet, I would have had him a bit closer to Logician in the market than he is, and I would have had Il Paradiso a wee bit closer to both of them as well.
I feel we're in danger of agreeing with each other far too much, but any final thoughts on the St. Leger, the last classic of the season? Are we missing out on Logician actually being a good thing, or anything at bigger prices in there, Declan, that you wanted to mention?
Just with Logician, I would say with him going up in trip, he does travel pretty strong. He travels, you know, like he travels like he's a proper 12 furlong horse to my eye. His dam, I think, is a half sister to Baited Breath and Selkirk, who are obviously much better horses over a mile and sprinting distances. I know he's by Frankel, where he's probably getting his stamina from. So there's probably in his pedigree and how he travels, you know, the last furlong of the race or half a furlong could just potentially stretch him. But in terms of ability, I think he's clear against these. One I would mention, and probably the horse I put up to hit the frame in the race, is actually Dashing Willoughby. He's a progressive horse for me. If you go back and watch the Goodwood Cup again, if you stop that race 2 furlongs out, he looked a big danger. Like, I'm not saying he was going to beat Stradivarius now or anything, but, you know, he had the likes of DXB and Cross Counter and these kind of horses at it coming to the 2-pole. I just don't think he stayed. I think dropping in trip now and coming back down against kind of 3-year-olds, that's going to suit him. Andrew Bald and Yard are in good form. The way I'm looking to play the race is maybe a small win bet and kind of most of it going on the place market for him. I'd rather be backing him to hit the frame at about 3-1, 7-2 than backing Logician to win or Dragon 8 to win. So that's how I'm going to play the race.
Okay, we know how Declan's going to play it. Dashing Willoughby around about 19.0 and a small win bet and certainly getting stuck into the place market on him. Jane, how are you going to play the race? One bet. You don't have to, but if you were going to, how would it be?
It was far too short for me for what he's done, and Sir Dragonet is the classic form. So yeah, I'd be going straight win Sir Dragonet. Especially, you have to remember how many options Ballydoyle would have had for that race.
I'm going to second that and jump right in on that bandwagon. Sir Dragonet for me, I think, is the bet in the race. Don?
Ballydoyle bandwagon against Logician at the price. So Dragonet more likely than Il Paradiso, but I'll probably have both of them on side.
Good stuff. I would never say I hope that a horse doesn't bolt up in a classic, but really hope Logician doesn't now, because there we go. But we'll see. We're arguing he's short on what he's achieved so far. Right, that's it for the UK action. We've got 6 Irish Group 1s to get stuck into. And the feature, as far as the weekend goes, but certainly Saturday goes, is the Irish Champion Stakes. We know what's going to line up now. As far as the prices go, you've got Magical 2.88, Elakam 4.5, same price for Headman, Mad Moon 7, Anthony Van Dyke 13, Deirdre 13, Magic 126, and good old Hunting Horn 67. Jane, if I can start with you, I put the point to Don earlier on this week when we were looking way ahead that, to my mind, I thought Magical was good enough to give those £3 to the 3-year-old, Mad Moon, who I'm just not quite sure boasts the type of form that would serve it up to her, given her form that ties in with Enable. Don argued slightly the other way. Where do you stand on the Irish Champion, Jane?
I think I just think Enable had been very busy. I don't think like a Mad Moon has been trained for this race, whereas I think Magical has been just trained from race to race to race. I came into the season thinking Magical is going to be trained for an arc, and doesn't seem to have materialised. I find it very hard to pull myself away from the Hamdan pair here. I'm after forgiving Elakam for his dismal 3-year-old season. You know, when he was disappointing last year, people just seemed to write him off, but he's put it behind him and he's been progressive all year. And Mad Moon, I'm a big fan of, and I think he's the value in the field, to be perfectly honest. He loves the track. He's trained masterfully for this race. I think 10 furlongs is his optimum trip. 1.5 miles is probably as far as he was ever going to want to go. And he ran very well at Epsom. And that, for me, as I said, for the last race, Dragonet, that's the strongest bit of form all year. And I was at the Curragh for the Irish Derby, that wonderful Irish Derby that nobody can make sense of. And he boiled over in preliminaries for me. A lot of horses had no excuses to offer after the race. For me, Mad Moon in the parade ring had ran his race before he got to the start. So I was nice to see him with a nice prep race the last day. Very easy run, perfect stepping stone to here. So for value against the favourite and taking on, I think Headman has it to prove. Headman is another dark horse coming in. It's a good little race now. I think Mad Moon, the 3-year-old colt, will take all the beating.
I think I know a man that agrees with you. Don, do you have anything to add to that?
Very, very similar, Tom. As you know, Mad Moon is running, therefore I'm going to have him on side. That's the way it normally works. Yeah, look, I just think he's a horse who's waiting to explode. Like I've been kind of waiting for him to explode all season. But as we mentioned earlier in the week, Tom, if you'd earmarked a race for Mad Moon at the start of the campaign, it would probably have been the Irish Champion Stakes, 10 furlongs at Leopardstown. And as Jane said, his course form is so good. He's run there 4 times. He's only been beaten once. That was when Never No More beat him on his debut this season. Over 7 furlongs on soft ground, when Never No More, who's a very good horse himself, had the benefit of a run. Even the last day at Leopardstown, he kind of stumbled coming out of the stalls. He lost about 3 or 4 lengths. And look, I know it was only a Group 3 race and he wasn't meeting the calibre of horse that he's going to meet tomorrow. But he did it very nicely. He came away, showed a lovely turn of foot, got to the front, and then he'd done enough job done. And you know that he's going to progress from that. That was over a mile. And while he's run well in a Guineas, you'd think the 10 furlongs is probably his trip. The mile and a half at Epsom, while he's finished second in a Derby, you just feel that dropping back and trip, even on the base of that run, he didn't have the run of the race that day either, as we know. You think the 10 furlongs is probably going to suit him better than a mile and a half. Fast ground at Leopardstown over 10 furlongs. That's probably very close to his optimum condition. And he's had a lovely run into the race. He had a nice break after the Irish Derby, lovely prep run. Kevin Prendergast and Chris Hayes seem to be quite comfortable with him, you know, quite optimistic without going overboard. So all of that. Look, I know what you're saying is right. He has to step forward. He's probably going to have to put up a career best to win it. But he's a 3-year-old who's got all, you know, he's still probably progressing through the season. So yeah, I think he's a little bit overpriced. And I'm surprised Alacam is such a short price, but I can see it because his run in the Juddmonte, he was coming back at Japan and Crystal Ocean on the run to the line. He seemed to get outpaced at the 2 furlong pole, and then he was staying on again. And interestingly, they normally come wide into the home straight at York these days over middle distances. But I think Donnacha O'Brien rode Circus Maximus that day, and he stayed towards the far side on the inside rail, and that made it difficult for horses who were coming from behind. So Alacam, he kind of ran out of racing room, and then when Jim Crowley took him to the outside, albeit inside the final 50 yards, he was closing on the 2 leaders going to the line. So, you know, you couldn't really say he was an unlucky horse, that, you know, he was unlucky not to win it, but he probably could have run a wee bit better, as in the way that he was sailing. He just didn't have a lot of racing room. So look, he still has to go and win his Group 1, but he's by Frankel head of attraction. He's a Group 1 bred, and I can see him running well as well. But no, I think Mad Moon is the value.
Yeah, I couldn't back, for all I think it's the second best bit of form in the race Alacam showed last time. I don't know. I probably the history of me seeing this horse and being disappointed by him, for all that was a really good run. I don't know if I could back him at 4.5 for an Irish champion. Declan, which side of the fence are you on? Because we're not all singing from the same hymn sheet.
No, well, I suppose I forgot to mention in the ledger there that the Ballydoyle battalions are probably going to set up a strong pace, and it looks like they'll set up a strong pace here again. Hunting Horn is going to run, Magic Wand has gone forward again, and for my money, if Magical is going to win over 10 furlongs on fast ground at Leopardstown, they're going to need to go strong. For my money, Magical is probably a 4 or 5 pounds better horse over 12 furlongs. I think she's a proper 12 furlong filly, I really do. And we saw this meeting last year at Leopardstown. The ground was actually rattling quick, so quick. I think, you know, a couple of very nice horses were injured, sadly. So it'll be interesting to see what Leopardstown do with the ground this year. It looks like it's going to be quick again. It'd be nice to have a going stick in Ireland so we could gauge these things, but that's for another day. I just think over the trip, I think Magical is beatable. I think she's the most likely winner, but I think she is vulnerable over this trip. I think, as Don has already alluded to there, Alacam, I think for all this is probably a step down in class in some ways, that he won't be taken on a Crystal Ocean or a Japan. He looks like another horse who's he could be caught for toe over 10 on fast ground. So, look, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the 3-year-olds in general. I think the 3-year-olds have been a pretty mundane bunch this season. Over the middle distances, Japan, to be fair to him, is probably stepping out from the pack. So, kind of with all that said, I'm actually going to hope the first Japanese horse to ever run in Ireland is going to be a winner and stick up Deirdre. I thought it looks like, I just think she's probably best equipped out of all of these to handle a strong run 10 furlongs on quick ground. Look, it is a step up in class for her, but I thought the Nassau performance was pretty good. She clearly thrived off the strong gallop, like a lot of these Japanese horses do. Looks like she's going to get a strong gallop again and on quick ground, and I'm hoping that she might be able to pick up the pieces late. You know, it's an open race. I just thought at the prices, she was the one I thought would have had a couple or maybe 2 or 3 points shorter in the betting. So yeah, I'm gonna stick up Deirdre for Japan.
Around about 13.0 for Deirdre. Mind is blown about the revelation there's no going sticks in Ireland. Amazing stuff. Although not every clerk over here trusts their going stick or even goes by it that much. So there you go. What ground are we working on for Leopardstown first of all, and then the colour out of interest?
It's going to be fast ground, all right, Tom. I was up with Pat Keogh there during the week for Racing TV, And yeah, they were watering away. So it was sunny, there was no rain forecast, so they're watering, but it's still, it's going to be good, flat, fast ground.
Right, Irish champion place. Jane, first of all.
Just to refer to that ground, there's a difference between fast ground and concrete, and it won't be concrete like it was last year. Magical is a filly that actually, yes, Declan, she's definitely better at 1.5 miles, and she's definitely better with her knees in the ground. So I just don't, she'll have to overcome an awful lot of things. So Mad Moon for me, value bet. She's quite rightly the highest rated horse in there because she has the best form. But I think Japan has stepped out from the 3-year-old bunch, and I think Mad Moon might be the next to do so.
Dom?
Mad Moon, for all the reasons mentioned earlier.
He's done that twice now, hasn't he? I like that. I'll come to you first next, Dom. I'm keeping the faith with Matt. I think she's that bit better than all of these in here. So I'll keep the faith with her. And Deck, you sticking with Deirdre at 13.0?
Yeah, I think I think Deirdre's a good solid each way bet. She's definitely of the horses in the race. I think for me, she's the most overpriced.
And I'm going to come straight back to you, if I can, with the matron, the last Group 1 on Saturday. You've got Laurens in there heading the betting, of course, last year's winner, which was a bit of a surprise, but a lot came to pass with the injury to Alpha Centauri, of course. And she was fantastic on the day. She's been brilliant ever since. 2.63, Hermosa 3.25, I Can Fly 7.5, and then 9s, 10s, and upwards getting bigger. Kick us off, Deck. Where are you looking in the matron?
Yeah, well, I suppose again, I always like when I sit down and study a race, the first thing I like to do is just see where all the pace is going to come from and see what kind of type of race it's going to pan out to be. With Laurens and Hermosa in here, it doesn't look like they're going to be messing around. So we're going to get a good honest gallop, and the best horse will win. Look, I think in terms of form, if Laurens can produce what she did in this race last year and what she did at York the last day, she will win. But she had a hard race at York the last day and on very quick ground, and she's a big girl now, she's got to travel over to Ireland again. I just think there could be enough to suggest that she could be run a little bit below par. Hermosa, I think, is the same at the price. I don't know how any man or woman or child or dog could back Hermosa at the prices after what she did the last day. She completely bombed out. She was good in the Guineas at Newmarket. She was brilliant in the Irish Guineas, and then I was at Royal Ascot that week, and I just saw her in the parade ring. She started to get a bit excited, getting a bit warm, which wasn't like her. And I just wonder now, have we seen the best of Hermosa? She still ran very well at Royal Ascot, but then she completely bombed out in the Nassau at Goodwood. And I know a lot of people will say it was the trip that beat her, but I think she was beaten. She was beaten well before the trip kind of came into play, for my money. So look, I think with all that said, I'm looking to take on the front two. I wouldn't be especially confident on her because she's a little bit hit and miss herself. But I Can Fly. I wouldn't be surprised if she picked up the pieces here. She's got a good record at Leopardstown. She's won at the track. She was good behind Too Darn Hot in the Sussex Stakes earlier in the year. And I just think that form, it's solid. It's stepping back in class, which back into Philly's only company. So Aidan O'Brien's got his team in great order at the moment. I think he's operating at about a 28% strike rate. So he's going into Irish Champions weekend, which historically hasn't been a great weekend for the Ballydoyle team, Coolmore Partners, historically the last few years. But I think I Can Fly at the prices. The race sets up well for her, and she's got a good track record at Leopardstown, and the front two at the markets, I've already explained, could be vulnerable. So I think I Can Fly is the one I'm going to side with at the prices in this race.
2.63 for Laurens, Hermosa 3.25, then I Can Fly 7.5. The others, Goddess 9.0, Iridessa 10.0, Skitter Scatter 11.0. Then you get stuck into the slightly bigger double figures. You touched upon the point there that, it looks as though there's going to be bundles of pace on, and that sort of led me to think Laurens would just tuck in behind probably, and I sort of wanted to oppose her, and then Don, I couldn't really find anything to oppose her with, so ultimately I'm sitting on the fence here.
Yeah, it's a tricky race, isn't it? Because Laurens is the obvious one. She's won the race last year. For all that Alpha Centauri sadly was injured in the race, it was still a good run by Laurens. If you take Alpha Centauri out of the race, it was a good performance by her to win it. Just, yeah, I mean, I was thinking, again, like Declan, I was trying to make cases for some of those further down the betting. I think I Can Fly probably needs easier ground. I think Iridessa, you know, I think 10 furlongs is probably her trip. Look, she's a lovely filly, and I've backed her a couple of times as well this season, but her best run was in the Pretty Polly, and that was over 10, back over a mile, albeit Leopardstown's good, got a good stiff finish, is a good stiff pull from the home turn up to the winning line. That'll help her, but I just think while she's a fillies mile winner from last year, and generally fillies mile winners tend to want a wee bit further. I think she might be a bit better. Skitter Scatter, you'd love to see her bouncing back, and there wasn't a bad run the last day at Tipperary, but she's going to have to improve a fair bit on that. If she could come back to last year's form, then you know you'd just love to see her going and winning it or running well. But no, I keep coming back to Hermosa. I know what Declan's saying about last time at Goodwood, but it was one bad run, and we know that it was too bad to be true for whatever reason. Whether it was, you know, probably wasn't the trip because she was beaten before 10 furlongs became an issue, but maybe it was the track, she just didn't handle it, and she didn't lead that day either. And it's kind of a strange race in lots of ways. And she's a dual Guineas winner, and she was, you know, finished second in the Coronation Stakes, albeit behind Watch Me beat her well, but again, take Watch Me out of the race. It was a revelation on the day, and that was a big run by her. And she's never run at Leopardstown, which is kind of bizarre for an Aidan O'Brien trained multiple Group 1 winning filly. She's never run at Leopardstown. So, but you'd think that the track will suit her. She's drawn 6 outside. Lawrence is in 2. She's in 6. But you know that Ryan Moore isn't going to do the wrong thing. He's going to either get to the front or else sit outside Lawrence. So, yeah, I know she has to put that run behind her, and she's not a massive price, and it's not really a bet for me. But I think, you know, she's a top class filly. Plus she's a 3-year-old. 3-year-olds have won 4 of the last 4 renewals of this. So yeah, I think Hermosa, if she can come back to her Guineas form, then I think she'll get in the way from Lawrence. Then yeah, I think she's probably the one.
I love the way that Dex said no man, woman, or dog could back him.
It was my dog.
Exactly. Now have an image of a dog walking into a betting shop and being like,
as we all know, Donn McClean is a different beast altogether.
It should have been, what you meant was no man, woman, dog, except Don. Don is the one that can.
Yeah.
Jane, anything to add to all of that with regard to the matron?
I'm an I Can Fly camp woman. I think she might finally get married instead of being the bridesmaid all her life. Might be her day in the sun. I think Lawrence probably didn't get the credit she deserved last year. That is fair, but I don't think she's the same filly this year. Look, the strength of her form this year is questionable. She deserves to be favoured, but she's a bit short for what she's done for me this year. Hermosa, dual Guineas winner, I am a big fan of hers, but she has a lot to prove on the back of that dismal effort. It was really disappointing that nothing came to light. You couldn't even offer an excuse for it, so that's quite unusual. Iridessa, yes, Donna's hit the nail on the head with her, needs further. Thought in the Guineas she ran well behind Hermosa, she hits that flat spot and she comes home well, but against these type of fillies that's just not going to suffice. So just through process of elimination, I Can Fly, I keep coming back to her. Yes, she wants slower ground, but you know, last year in the QE2, she nearly beat Roaring Lion on soft ground. And while it's going to be quick, a mile is probably her trip. And she won well at this meeting last year. Was it the Boomerang she won, or something like that? So I just think if they go good and strong, which they inevitably will, she could be the value against Lawrence and Hermosa.
So Declan and Jane singing from a similar sort of hymn sheet, and Don sticking pretty with Hermosa, and I've got splinters behind me because I'll decide tomorrow morning. There you go, when I listen back to this. That's it for the Saturday action. We've got 4 Group 1s to get through in pretty swift time as far as Sunday goes. We're going to kick off with the 2-year-old contest. Now, we don't know exactly what's going to turn up. We've got a pretty good idea from quotes, etc. So, Moy-Glare National, first of all. It's my favourite juvenile race of the season. I don't know why. I love the Moy-Glare. It always produces a quality winner, as you would expect. But it's for me, the 2-year-old fillies race, which people talk about from such a way out. You're trying to work out what's going there. We know that Aidan O'Brien's got an excellent record in it. Interestingly, this year, you've got a couple at the top of the betting who don't hail from that stable. You've got Albania 3.25, Daya 4.35. Alpine Star, we don't think is going to go there. I'm sure she's going to go up to a mile, given the quotes that have been in there. Love may well head the Ballydoyle Charge, 9.0, and then you get stuck into the double figures. Jane, kick us off, because I know this is a race you're looking forward to.
Yeah, I think no trainer has had a better year with her juveniles than Jessica Harrington, and she has the best ruler or measurement for what to run in this race. And Albina, I think the whispers around the racetracks of Ireland have been that while Jessica has had a wonderful year, Albina kind of tops the pecking order. That's just been kind of the unsaid whisper at the moment, and that says a lot, because you've Cayenne Pepper in there, you've Alpine Star potentially going to the Fillies Mile. And she's just been, I think she's had 18 juvenile winners this season, which is incredible. So yeah,
most of them have been fillies. I mean, is that just is that, for your knowledge of the stable, has she just got more fillies than colts? Is that something they set out to do this year?
There's just been more runners that are fillies. I don't think there's been a bias as regards gender, but the classy ones are the fillies. And you would imagine going into the season without Alpha Centauri, without your star, you might just have a little bit of a lull. And it's just every year for the last 5 years, her flat string has just gone from strength to strength. So I'm a big fan of Albina. What she did in the Airlight Stakes was very, very smart. And like, obviously, being an Iarcos filly, it goes without saying that she's bred in the purple. So I think 7 for Daughters Ofni is going to be perfect. I hope Roger Varian's filly Dea comes over. Does anybody have an inside line there?
He said recently that is the plan. So as far as I'm concerned, she's definitely coming over.
Yeah, so it'd be nice to have a parallel with the British form, because I don't think Aidan's strongest fillies are lining up here. No disregard to Love or Precious Moment. I think Petit Mystique or somebody like that probably stronger. But if she came over, it would just keep the form honest and give us a proper Group 1.
This is the bit, incidentally, by the way, where we preview a race and say something definitely coming, and about an hour after we release the pod, they don't. But as far as we know, we're working on what we think is going to come over. Can I throw some spanners into the works just for fun with Albania, who I'm very positive about? But Don, we talked about this, and I know you're relatively keen on her, but the form on paper hasn't produced a bundle of winners from last time necessarily, and we haven't seen her for a little bit. We haven't seen her for, I think, 80 odd days. Are they anything for you to be concerned about, Don?
I wouldn't be at all concerned about the fact that we haven't seen her in a while. As Jane said, Jesse's trouble is trying to divvy them all up and find different targets for them all. Yeah, like, look, you would have liked to have seen the race work out a wee bit better the last time, the Group 2 race, but she can only, you can only beat what she beat. And, as we discussed during the week, Tom, that was over 6. It looks like she's going to be a better filly over 7 furlongs. And like the fact that Alpine Star could easily have run here. I suppose Cayenne Pepper could have run here as well. And now they're still in the race, it looks like they're, as long as everything's good with Albania, which it looks like it is. Kate Harrington was saying yesterday to Gary Bryan Racing TV that looks like the plan. So yeah, she's only run twice. I'd say this has been her target since she won that Group 2 race. I wouldn't say there were any races in between that she's missed. She's been the Moidlair. It's a premier Group 1 fillies race here, and it's the race that it makes sense to go and target her at that race. A furlong out the last day in the early stud, she didn't look a likely winner, but she finished off her race really strongly. And the step up to 7 furlongs should suit her. Both her runs have been at the Curragh, so we know she handles the track. And yeah, she just looks, she looks like a progressive filly who's high up in the pecking order. Like, so there's her and Alpine Star and Cayenne Pepper, and hopefully Windracer will come back again at some point later in the season. And all the other 2-year-old winners that she's had, the fillies in particular. She's got a really good handle on what will be required to win a Moidlair Stud Stakes. And look, it's good that hopefully Daya will come over, because she was favoured earlier in the week when we spoke to her, wasn't she? So she's drifted, and hopefully that's not on the back of a potential change of plan by Roger Varian and connections. And yeah, if it looks like Alpine Star Cayenne Pepper won't run, she's an honest to God filly. She won well at Leopardstown back in July. She was disappointing then behind Alpine Star in the debutante stakes, but again, that wasn't a step forward from her Leopardstown run. But if she came back to the Silver Flash form, that would bring her close. it's just she's getting a little bit exposed now. We're kind of getting to know her level, whereas the likes of Albania and even Daya, we don't know that, like, they have more potential to progress. But yeah, sorry, Albania. So yeah, look, I think Albania. I'm not surprised that she's favourite now.
I think part of the move as well has been the fact that, Alpine Star's gone the other way, because I think they were both about 5.0, those two Jessie Harrington fillies. One's come in, one's gone out. And if I like Dyer at the start of the week and she's a bigger price now, around about 4.25, then I'll have to side with her. I thought that she was on the wrong part of the track last time with Raffle Prize, and tried to come from off the pace at the July course, which is quite difficult. I think the step up in trip will suit her. So it sounds like Jane and Don quite keen on Albania. You mentioned Love. I didn't think she quite had. Well, she did have the run of things, but there was a bit of a pace meltdown that day, which suited Alpine Star. She's probably a bit better than that. I wouldn't back her. Anything to add, Declan, to those thoughts before we kick on?
No, just with Love, I think her disappointing run last day was maybe down to the ground. She's a really fluent moving filly, and I think getting back on some quicker ground would suit here at the Curragh. Totally agree with you about Daya. That step up and trip would suit. That form with Raffle Prize is obviously very good. Totally agree again with how their race panned out for Newmarket on the July course. You come 3 off the rail and switch around and get going. So kind of those, I'd have Daya's favourite over those. I think Albania, the Harrington filly, her form isn't as strong as Daya's. So for all that, she will improve for the step up and trip. But as you said at the very start of kind of doing this, we don't know the full field yet, so it's hard to be kind of concrete on anything when we don't know tactically how to play in the draw and etc. But look, again, it's going to be another good race and a pointer towards next season's classics.
Yeah, which the National Stakes is going to be as well. But it's a shame, Don, that we now know we're not going to have Siskin. We knew that at the start of the week, and it means Pinatubo is a very warm order at the top of that market, around about 1.5. But I suppose on what he's achieved, you can't argue with that. So we're not going to have that match. Aidan O'Brien seems like he's going to be well represented. Is this going to be a betting heat for you, Don, the National Stakes?
No. No.
I mean, it's a podcast, but hey, we're not going to...
No, look, it's a big shame we're not seeing Siskin. Look, you could understand both ways. You could have understood it if they would run him over 7 furlongs this year to find out if he was a 7 furlong horse, if he got it, and then you could train him for a Guineas next year, and no early. Because if he didn't see out, if he obviously didn't stay 7 furlongs in a National Stakes, then obviously you train him as a 6 furlong horse for a Commonwealth Cup next year, please God. But look, they've decided to go over the Middle Park. It makes sense as well. You can see on that level, go and win a Middle Park. It could be champion juvenile. So you can understand why they're going. And I suppose the presence of Pinatubo was probably a contributory factor, because he's a monster. He's just so good. Everything he's done, he's improved from the Chesham onto Goodwood to the Vintage Stakes he won at Goodwood. And it's great that he's coming over. It's great that we're going to see him. Armory's a good filly. Arizona, depends what Aidan O'Brien's going to run. Maybe he'll run both of those. So I say a good filly, good colt. I just think they have to both improve to step up to the level that Pinatubo's at. And as we know, Charlie Appleby, he likes bringing his good 2-year-old colts over. He won it with Curto last year. So yeah, it's I think it's go and have a look at Pinatubo and watch him run, I think.
Jane, can you find a way to play this contest? Are you happy with the shape and strength of the field for the National?
Yeah, well, we don't have final decks. I think it's a match. From what we've seen so far, I was going through the race with Armory, and I was going to be blown away by the way he quickened, and then when he got to the front, he just pulled up, and it ended up being a deflating performance from what was looking like it was going to be something really impressive. And he's not. The only way he's going to pull up this time is if he gets past Pinatubo. The pair are going to go. I'd love to just see Ryan follow the Godolphin colours everywhere, and I think if he can quicken and match Pinatubo, it's going to be whoever wins this could be champion 2-year-old in my eyes, because Pinatubo, as Don said, is a monster. What he did in the Vintage Stakes was, like, Lope Fernandez is a good horse. The horses behind him are not bad individuals, and he made them look ordinary. Quarto, obviously similar profile last year. Pity we didn't see him this year. So I'd say Connections have always had this in their head to come back and do it again. And so far, Pinatubo looks like the best colt we've seen as a 2-year-old. He's the highest rated 2-year-old in Europe at the moment. And if he can back it up, I don't know how you play it, but for me, those two, Armory, And Pinatubo standout miles.
So basically, that's the one. I mean, as far as you're concerned, if anything's getting anywhere near those two, you're surprised. Do you think Pinatubo is that much better than Armory and what they've shown so far, Jane, based upon the current prices?
I don't think you can take Armory's form literally, because he actually did get to the front and stop. Like, no offense to Rebel Tail, who finished fast the last day. I think Ryan's horse was stopping. He got to the front. He quickened well, got to the front, and didn't maintain the pace. So I'd like to see him get the lead as far as he can at the Curragh this time, because I'd say Ryan learned a lot from the last day. He hit the front too soon.
If there's a man that's going to know how to play this race and actually have a wager and get the cash out, it's Rixie.
Yeah, do you know what I was looking at in terms of a bet was actually the distance market. Well, we haven't got betting for it now, but I'll be looking at Pinatubo to win over a length or two maybe, because he does everything right. He's as Jane's already alluded to, he's the highest rated 2-year-old we've seen this year. He's the full package. He travels very strong, but really what sets him apart is he's so generous off the bridle. It's rare you see a 2-year-old pick up like him and just keep running to the line. I think there's parts of the form of his at Goodwood that are questionable. I thought it was a very messy race. A lot of good horses didn't run their race, but at the same time, it was run over the same course and distance as, was it the Lennox Stakes, the same day, which was won by Sir Dancelot. Time and section fared very favourably. So look, I think whatever beats him here, if something does beat him, and I don't think they will beat him, it's going to be a serious horse. I did notice that Mark Johnston left in Monoski, who is owned by Sheikh Mohammed's son, and I think he could be used as a potential pacemaker here for Pinatubo. So in terms tactically, it doesn't look like the race is going to get messy at all, because he does want a strong gallop, and obviously we know when we get these strong run races, the best horses always come to the fore. So yeah, well, I know people are looking for a bet. I wouldn't be backing him at 1-2 or something like that, but I'd be happy to back him at maybe evens or bigger in the distance market. So yeah, we keep an eye out for that on the day.
That was the point I was going to come in with. It'd be interesting to see where the pace comes from, and if that happens with Monoski, that'd be interesting, because I think he'll be better the quicker they go. But I suppose you could say that about most horses if they're going to go off and win pretty comfortably. Last two Group 1s we're going to have a look at are the Irish St Leger and the race of the weekend, the Flying Five. I mean, I'm generally really looking forward to that contest. I like Sophia in it, so we'll come to that. But as far as the Irish Leger goes, does anybody know what we think of the Ballydoyle team is likely to turn up? Is Kew Gardens a certain runner, do we know, gang? Anyone got anything to offer on that?
I think he is going to run, but by the sounds of it, Aidan used that trusty old term of his, just ready to start off. And he's been, which I love that he says it before a classic, and then a horse goes and wins a classic. Like, he was just ready to start, lads. But I don't know, I have a bad feeling about Kew Gardens in this race in terms of him winning this race, because he's been entered for the Melbourne Cup, and he's going to carry top weight there. And reading in between the lines, I think they could be using this race as a prep for the Melbourne Cup. I don't know. The market will obviously tell us, but I think that's what I was reading into it. If he's fully fit and he's come here raring to go, he's obviously going to be one of the horses on high on your shortlist. But whether or not he's going to be in peak performance for this race is another thing. And obviously, Ballydoyle and Coolmore supplemented Southern France, which maybe suggests that he's not going to be at peak form, so they want to try and win it with something else. So that's just something I bear in mind with the race. But as ever in these occasions, the market will always be our friend.
And I suppose what is interesting is Charlie Apper, who's sending over Pinatubo. We know is very likely to have cross-counter lining up. He's half a point bigger. I've been a little bit disappointed with him so far this season, but I suppose only because I was, when he won in Dubai, I thought, you know, he could be the second coming as far as the cut horses go this year, but he couldn't really lay a glove on Stradivarius. Do you think the market? I know it's in its infancy, the market, Don, but is it about right for you at the moment?
Yeah, look, it is. This is a particularly difficult race to figure out what's going to run, because Joseph O'Brien and Lloyd Williams have 3 in it as well: Latrobe, Buckhurst, and Master Reality. So
I think Latrobe is an intended runner, from what I was reading.
Yeah, I think Joseph is going to run Latrobe, Master, Reality, and Twilight. They're going to be his 3 runners. So,
sorry, Don. That?
Yeah, like the Twilight Payments, fascinating having this first run for Joseph O'Brien, having joined from Jim Bulger. So obviously he's going to race in the Williams colours as well. So but you know, as Declan mentioned there, some of these horses will have the Melbourne Cup in mind. And any horse that races in the Williams colours, you know that the Melbourne Cup is going to be at least in the back of their mind. So yeah, look, I think it's a race that before we have the final make of the field, Tom, it's a race to just, I think, wait and see what's going to run, because if Latrobe ran, obviously he's very interesting, having finished second in the race last year as a 3-year-old, and now he's a 4-year-old stronger, and his run the last day was good. Look, he had to go and win his race, and he did. It was only a Group 3, but he did it well. He only won by 3 parts of it, but you could have called him as the most likely winner from a fair way out. Burkhurst is a very interesting horse. I'm not sure if A, he's going to run, and B, it's a significant step up in trip. He does look like a 10 furlong horse, but he's a really progressive horse, and he's a nice horse. Whatever he does, he's a horse worth keeping in mind. Capri is a horse that he's just hasn't done it this year. He could have, you know, he's a St. Leger winner and Irish Derby winner. He could have been an Ascot Gold Cup horse this year, but he just hasn't gone forward like you hope that he would. If he came back to his best, and he could run well at a big price. But look, if Kew Gardens is we haven't seen him in a while. We haven't seen him since he got beaten in the Coronation Cup, and again, he had entries along the way in some of those cup races, so it's going to be interesting to see him back. It will be his first run in a while, and you can expect that he'll come on for it. So yeah, the most solid is Cross Counter, and it wouldn't be surprising to see him going off his favourite.
Jane, any firm opinions on the Irish St. Leger?
It's Cross Counter for me. I think Southern France probably best with the knees in the ground. Kew Gardens, there's just too many question marks. He, for me, is the best horse in the field. I thought coming into this season that Kew Gardens could be our King George champion middle distance type horse, but just things haven't gone his way. Latrobe is going to have to improve in all known form for me. I don't think his form last year, St. Leger, will stand up to Cross Counter. A horse that Don mentioned there, Buckhurst, he's declared for the Kiltiernan at Leopardstown tomorrow, and he's actually my bet of the weekend. So he goes for the Group 3 over 1.5 miles.
I love that curveball. You're going to stuff that in as a best bet, I take it. So you're very welcome to do that, and we'll tie those up with all the viewers at the end of the race. And I just, on what Don mentioned on Capri, apparently Shamey said after he ran last time that he would improve a bundle for it and wasn't quite fit for it. So, and maybe that's to take into account with regard to Kew Gardens, which we all seem to be erring on a bit of caution with regard to that. As far as the Flying 5 goes, again, we're not certain of final decks, but at the moment you've got Sophia around about 3.5, a point bigger for Mabs Cross and Soldiers Cool. Hootson, if coming over, is around about 6.5, and then you go into double figures. Hands up for who wants to kick us off with the Flying 5, off the back of me saying that I was very positive with Don about Sophia earlier on the week. She heads the betting now, which is slightly frustrating, but I think she's an absolute snorter of a bet for this, because I know she's trained by Eddie Lynham, and you know, he's so well renowned for these quality fast horses. But even so, I feel that she could just still be a touch underestimated coming into this. She's getting better and better, and I think she's a star sprinter in what is a slightly weakish Group 1 field. Who's first up?
I'll go.
Good man.
Stupidly enough, I'll go. Yeah, look, I totally agree. She's the most progressive horse in the race. I'm just looking at it here. Invincible Army, if he runs, it's probably going to be a bit of a second thought. Dropping back to 5 furlongs, I'm not sure is that going to suit. Soldier's Call obviously ran a massive race in the Nunthorpe, where he helped Batash set a track record. He's come to the curve before and not performed, and I'd wonder if that race left a mark on him as well, given he ran such a big race. Hootson, we don't know if she's going to come over, but that form behind Batash would look decent again. Although I would say Sophia's form last day when in the car is probably a slightly bit stronger. Mabs Cross, it looks like she's going to come here. But again, it looks like this hasn't been the plan either. And it looks like, again, the ground at the Curragh this weekend is going to be quick, and Michael Dodds and the team said the last day at York that the reason she wasn't at her very best is because the ground was too quick. So it all comes back to Sophia, who looks like this has been her target. She's trained by Fast Eddie, who we know trains these sprinters brilliantly, and her form and titles are to be up there with all of these, and she's been trained for the race. So yeah, I think at a track that she clearly adores, she is the most likely winner for me. Yeah, I totally agree.
Deadly Dom, we were saying something as much as that at the start of the week. Are you still sitting in that position?
Yeah, all of that, Tom. Just a lot of what Declan said. Look, it's amazing. She was only just beaten in a 7 furlong race last summer. So, and she's just getting faster. In fact, like even 6 furlongs, the Curragh penultimate run, she was good. But then last time in the Sapphire Stakes over 5, she was even better. So, and after that race that Eddie Lynham said the Flying 5 was a race. And you love that when trainers say that, don't you? That they target a race, skip everything else in between, go straight for the Flying 5. You know, she could have run. She could have been an Unthorpe filly, but he said no, Flying 5. That's where she's going. The race that he won with Soul Power a few years ago. So, yeah, look, love to go and see her winning it. Mabs Cross, she's a very good filly, but as we were discussing earlier in the week, Tom, she probably just hasn't been in great form this year. And her run the last day in the Nunthorpe at a track where she'd run so well behind Alpha Delphine, she was lucky not to win the Nunthorpe the previous year. That was just a bit disappointing, and coming here in the back of that, maybe because the race cut up a little bit, maybe they decided to go and have a go. Soldier's Call's coming into it on a high, and he's only 3, so he's an excited feat. The ground was soft for the last day, and the Sprint Cup, if she takes her chance, she's like, her run in the July Cup was very, very good behind 10 Sovereigns when she raced on the wrong part of the track for most of the race. So she's a filly who could step forward again, but no, Sophia, she's just got so much in her favour, hasn't she?
Are we all being boring with Team Sophia, Janie, or can you find anything elsewhere?
Pity that some of the other horses didn't target this race. It's an afterthought for a lot of them, and for that reason, it's definitely Sophia. I'm a big fan of Fairyland, as I am So Perfect, and I couldn't really both ran on soft ground in Haydock, and I think no matter how much your rider might have been sympathetic on soft ground, to get a hard race. And that is definitely detrimental, especially when you're coming across a filly of Sophia's calibre who's been trained specifically for the race.
Love it. We're all in something of agreement. That's our 7 Group 1s. We've rattled through them. So now it's time.
We do the handicaps now.
Yeah, now we'll get stuck into the handicaps, which I jokingly suggested we might. But I haven't even started with them. What have we got as far as best bets goes then? So we've got 7 Group 1s, or they can come from anywhere else. So as far as our team best bets go, between the St Leger or anything at Doncaster, if you like, or anything over between Leopardstown and the Curragh, let's kick off with Jane. It's only right to do so. Best bet for the weekend, Jane?
Buckhurst in the Kiltiernan. There's enough question marks about all the rest of his rivals. I think this is a genuine Group 1 horse in Group 3 company. He was in the Irish Derby up until the last stage. He was in the St Leger here up until the last stage, but they've kept him slowly building him along. I think Buckhurst is a potential Group 1 horse in a Group 3 company. And just one other mention as well for Tarnawa in the Blandford. Dermot Weld always targets this race. It's a Group 2 race over a mile and a half for fillies at the Curragh. He's won 3 of the last 4 runnings of this race, with potentially Group 1 fillies running in a Group 2 race. And I think Tarnawa in the Blandford would be a good bet too.
Bang, love it. A couple of horses, and not even from the 7 races that we previewed. Declan, over to you. Best bet for the weekend?
I would say the nap would probably be Cross Counter in the Irish Leger. And the best value bet, I think, is Deirdre in the Irish Champion Stakes.
Excellent
stuff. Donn McClean, best bet for the weekend?
I'm going to stick with Mad Moon, Tom. No reason to deviate from earlier in the week. We discussed the race upside down, inside out. I just think the track will suit him, the trip will suit him, the ground will suit him. He's had a lovely prep for the race. He had a nice break and a nice prep run. And he has to step forward. He's going to win it, but there's every chance that he will at a track that he loves.
And to be fair, you kept faith all year, Don. So I really hope with regard to that, though, that it comes together this weekend. And I will go for Dyer, who I'm now terrified isn't even going to come over. But I think Dyer in the Moyglare has got a really good chance based on where she raced last time and her price, because she doesn't even head the market currently for Roger Ver, and he's got a good record of bringing horses over. We're done. Great stuff. Declan, Don, Jane, thank you very much indeed. Have a great weekend wherever you're watching it. I assume that some of you will certainly be over at Leopardstown and the Curragh, and I'm going to enjoy watching it very much indeed, and enjoy the last classic of the season as well over at Doncaster. Thanks to those of you at home for watching this week's Matchbook Horse Racing podcast. We'll see you again soon.